Today I am sharing with you my finished Sew for the Soul book. This is a project that was hosted by Anne Brooks, who is a textile artist, and I'll put a link to her channel in the description box below. She has put out a series of about 10 videos for us to make a book following along with her guidelines, and this is video 10 of mine, and what we were to do is make our cover and stitch it on and complete our book and make a closure for it as well, which I've done. She did say to try and use the base color. Perhaps my base color, which is the color I wanted to use on every page, was pink. But when I looked through the book, I actually used more blue, but it was pink. So I've put bits of pink on. I've got a closure in pink. So this is, and we could do whatever we wanted really on the cover. So I did that. I did lots of straight stitching around. I did some feather stitch. I did some seed stitching. I did some French knots, lots of French knots, lots of straight stitching in different ways, cross stitching, some blanket stitching. I did couching. I made some Suffolk puffs. I put some beads in there. I've stitched a button on the top there. I have a doily because I did make sure I used a doily on every page. For my spine, I've put some daisy trim on. I've got some tatting stitched on there with straight stitching and some couching. I've just done a rough sort of straight stitch, I guess. I'm not quite sure how you would describe that. I did have to put this spine on twice, actually, because the first time I made it, it was too big. It was too wide for my book, and it just didn't look right. So I had to unstitch it all, and so I'm just pulling out the threads that I had to sort of cut away. I did put a little doily there and a flower at the top just because it looked a bit square there. Oh, and a bit of doily as well. Now when I stitched mine, I stitched my front cover on, and then I stitched the back piece on, and then I stitched the spine on either side like that, but it's not stitched at the end there or at the end there, so it's like a hollow spine, I guess you could say. And this is the back, so we have more straight stitching, more cross stitching, more French knots, more couching, some more tatting, some more daisy trim, some more seed stitching on the pink down here, and I think, oh no, that's straight stitch up there. So lots of that, and that's the back. Oh, more French knots on the pink flowers there as well, and that's, oh, I've got a blanket stitch along there as well. So that is my cover, and for my closure I have this vintage belt buckle in pink, and I've just used some fabric to thread through that double thickness fabric, and I've done a straight stitch all around there. I do have lots of lovely vintage lace trims on the book itself, on in between the pages, just to finish them off. I know people use different methods of finishing their pages off, but I chose to use lace because I like vintage lace, and I did add a little bit of beading there and there and down here in various places. So I'll give you a quick flip through of the completed book just in case you haven't seen any of the pages before. And the way I stitched my cover on is I just did a little, oh, what does she call it? I forget what she calls it. It's just a tiny little stitch that goes through everything, and I used machine thread for that. Okay, so these were the first two pages. The first two pages were just to use our colours, do some straight stitching with our threads, and just use them in different ways. That's right. I've scribbled down a few notes here. I might actually type it up and pop it in one of the pockets in the book, what was to be done on each page. So that's page 1 and 2, just to do various straight stitching and decide what colours we were going to be using and what threads we were going to be using throughout the book. And so then we have page 3 and 4, and this was X marks the spot. Add a pocket and make a tag, and doing lots of straight stitching again. So we have a pocket here, and we did an X on the pocket, and we made a fabric tag with, once again, straight stitching on there. I've used a doily because I wanted to use a doily. I've used a little doily piece there as well. And that goes in that pocket. Maybe I'll put it in that pocket because there's plenty of room in that pocket. So that's page 3 and 4. And lots of like X's and things like that on this particular page. I think that was all I had written down. Yes. Okay, so pages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 were Suffolk puffs and French knots, and we were to use a colour that we wouldn't normally use, and the colour that I chose was purple because I don't normally use purple, and it was fun to actually play around with the purple, and I think it turned out quite nicely. Once again, lots of doily pieces around the edge of the page and a bit of beading there. And so we did Suffolk puffs. I added a flower, a layered flower there with a button, another button, French knots as well, and there's all French knots in there. And you can find all these pages in more detail on my, I think I've got a playlist for it. Okay, so the next one, now I have to skip one because I had to add more pages and then I ended up missing a page. So my next one was this one, and that can't be right. Now I'm confused myself. This was a weaving page, this one. Oh, okay, here we go, I've got it. Okay, weaving, pages 7 and 8. I don't know what happened to 5 and 6. I think that was sewing pages together, adding some lace and beading around the edge of the pages. And then we've got pages 7 and 8. Oh, because I missed 5 and 6, that's right. Weaving fabric strips, adding a few bits and pieces like safety pins and buttons, etc. So I have buttons, I have a little fabric, bulb pin, I have a safety pin, more buttons down here. I have my doily piece here. It's kind of shaped like a butterfly. And we were to try a new stitch. And so this is where I first tried the feather stitching, which was nice because I hadn't done that before. Once again, lots of straight stitching, lots of pieces of lace, lots of French knots and lace in my pages and things like that. So that was that one. And the pages were, all strips of fabric were woven together, but then it wasn't to be done perfectly. You know, like this one's missing one of the woven bits, and that's how it was meant to be, just to add interest to the page. And then this one was a breather page, if I recall. Just make sure I've got, that's not it. Yes, pages 9 and 10 were a breather page. We were to choose one piece of fabric for the background and then a strip of fabric to go across in any way you wanted, really. It could be vertically or horizontally, but we were also putting a hole in our page and making this little peekaboo window here. We were to do some fancy stitching along the strip and do some waves and feather stitching, and I've done some flowers and cross stitching and some little French knots and seed stitching here. And then this is all like, I don't know what that is, just over and over and over, but I've done all little French knots around there as well, and I've put some beading along the edge of that one. So that's my breather page, and that's reinforced with wire, and Anne shows you how to do all of that on her videos. And then we have this page. Let me just find it. I think this was just a page of circles. There's our peekaboo. We've got French knots all the way around it. We were doing circles. I got confused. Oh, here we go. Plain fabric. Okay, we were doing marking off the circle. So we had to sort of draw the circle where that would show through. See how that shows through there? And I chose to, and we stitched around the circle so it was enclosed, and I did seed stitches on my circle there. We were using various fabrics from throughout the book. Seed stitch, and we could add buttons. I think I've got 3 buttons added there, a little bit of French knots up there, and different circles layered upon each other as well. And there's some a bit of blanket stitch in there as well, and some pistol stitching down here. So that was page 11 and 12. And then the last, oh no, I have to go back to here now. Pages, where is it? Page 13 and 14. Okay, so I think pages 13 and 14, we were to use 3 fabrics and 3 threads. We were to make some plain pockets. Now I chose to use diagonal pockets because I made my book a slightly different size to what Anne's book was made. So mine's more a rectangle size than a square size. Plain pockets, we were to use running stitch from top to bottom on the base, and I think that was supposed to be in different colour threads, but I forgot to do that, but that's okay. There's a lot of give and take on these instructions. We were to decorate our pockets, and we were to make a little booklet for one side, and so I made like a circular, well, I had this doily, so I made a little booklet to suit that doily. I'm not overly keen on this bright pink colour, but it, you know, that's just the way I did it at the time. I do love the little button in the centre though, and that's another doily piece under there. And then I think what was supposed to be, little book was made out of the base colour pink. That's what I had on hand at the time. So, okay, so these are the instructions for in the little book. All right, so 3 rectangles and 3 tiny rectangles for the first page. So I've got 3 larger rectangles, 3 smaller rectangles. That was what we were supposed to do on the first page. The second page, we were to have 5 buttons and 2 squares. So I've got 2 squares and the 5 buttons. On the third page, we were to have 2 rectangles, pistol stitch, straight stitch, and a button. So I've got a button there and everything there. On this page, we were to have couching. And so I just used some things that I'd sort of used throughout the book, like tatting and some daisy trim there. Did some feather stitching and cross stitching and did the couching of the trims. Okay, and so the next one is 3 rectangles. One of them was to be made into a little pocket, and in that pocket we were to have a little tag So there's my little fabric tag there, and that goes in that small pocket. I've done some blanket stitch, some, oh gosh, I forgot what it was called. Little French knots and some straight stitching. And then on the last one we were to have a piece of lace. So I have this large piece of crochet trim. I should go back and do some pink stitching there, but it would show through, so never mind. And I just joined all these with a straight stitch, a large straight stitch, and out of machine thread. Apart from this one, oh no, I joined it. See how it's got the machine thread there, but on the other side I have the straight stitch. And that's just the back, and that's got the doily on it as well. And then on the other side we were to make a heart, and we could do that out of the fabric. So I really love the little heart. I think it's so pretty. That's that side, and that's that side there as well. And that's what the page looks like there, and there's my doily. So that goes in there like that. So that was pages 13 and 14. So now I just need to find where that, I think. Okay, 15 and 16, that would be it. Okay, so, and that was, like I said, I accidentally skipped that. So that page ended up in the middle of my book. And so this, let me just, oh, there we go. I'll just put that like that. We'll put it like, that so you can see the last page now. The last page was like an index of fabrics that were used throughout the book. We were to find ourselves a quote, and following Anne's instructions, she shows you how to sew onto the fabric, which was the first time I've done that, so I'm quite pleased with that. And of course mine is Sewing Calms the Soul, Sew for the Soul book. I used a hanky to do that on. And then we were to make use lots of little pieces of fabric that we'd use throughout the book, and use lots of stitching and buttons and things like that. And so this one here is a flip, and I've put a metal piece there. It has some French knots on it, and that flips up and up. Love that fabric. And then there's the couching piece there, and then underneath I have little Suffolk pups and crochet trim, some pistol stitching and straight stitching, some of the lace that I've used throughout the book, in the book as well, some more of the little daisy pieces. My doily piece is here. On this side I've tied it down. Here we go, so it doesn't flap open everywhere. So here we have a piece of fabric with a zigzag pair of scissors with a ribbon attached to keep it shut. That one is stitched to that one, some straight stitch there. And then here we have buttons and trim with some French knots, samples of the fabric, a little piece of doily, more straight stitching on linen, some seed stitching and cross stitching, some Suffolk puffs. I love that. I think that's so pretty. Lots of little French knots on a doily piece, some buttons, and some more of the daisy trim, some more buttons. I couched a little bow out of the thread there. There's the doily piece. We have a little envelope here made out of fabric, and inside, and I did take it out before, I'm having a personal note, and said to sort of write a note about your experience and things like that. But mine's a bit too personal, and it's not decorated. It's just a little note. So I took mine out so I didn't have to show it. I've got a little safety pin there as well. And that's got blanket stitch and straight stitch. This is all straight stitched as well there. So that's my little index of fabrics on the back. Last page there. And that is my Sew for the Soul book completed. I thoroughly enjoyed making this. It was just a wonderful thing to work on. Oh, there's bullion stitches down there as well. Absolutely thrilled to have finished it. It was a lot of work, but enjoyable work. And to do it up, all I've done is I've threaded it here. I go back through this one here like that. I get it tight enough, not too tight. I mean, this is only a little vintage plastic buckle, so I don't want to break it or anything. I go like that, but what I do is I just give that a little twist because I prefer it to look like, you know, to be like that. I prefer it to have a nice little twist on it. I put that little bit of lace there, and it's all finished, and I'm really, really happy with it. And I'll probably be trimming little tiny threads off it every time I touch it. It's nice and soft and squishy. What's the word you call it? Tactile, that's the word. It came together beautifully, and I felt the need to sort of put that on the side there. I'm glad I did. It kind of just finishes the top off rather than it just being straight. And so that's it. I'm sure Anne will have another project up next year, so that will be something to look forward to. But for this year, that's the last project she is having, and so I did that one, and I also did the Sew for the Soul, which is a long snippet roll as well, and thoroughly enjoyed both of them. I learnt a lot, and I like that. I like that I've learnt something. It's always good to learn something, and the colours are just so happy, you know, they're so pretty. So and it is spring here, so it's very suitable for our time of year. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much, Anne, for having this wonderful project on the go this year. And like I said, I'll put a link to her channel in the description box below if you care to, because you can do this any time. Some people are only just starting now, so you can join in any time. And there is a hashtag on Instagram if you're on Instagram, and that is Sew4thesoulbook. So thank you for watching, everybody. Take care. Bye.